I will always love you no matter what. Many a mother or father has said these words to their child. I would venture to guess that almost everyone in this room has heard them at some point or seen it lived out as loved ones stuck by you. I will always love you no matter what. A few times my daughter has said back to me, "You always love me, Mommy," seeking reassurance or expressing her security in our relationship as she nestles in my arms during a bedtime hug. She has heard that my love for her has no bounds, and she feels deep within that she is safe in the circle of my love. This mooring then allows her to reach out and explore the world. Social psychologists call it a secure attachment, and it's absolutely essential to a child's sense of well-being. This kind of relationship is how we learn to trust life from the earliest age. The need to know we are supported, to know that there are people we can count on, is not limited to children, of course. We grown-ups require a stable social environment too. If we don't get it, both our personal growth and our group efforts will be limited. Patrick Lencioni speaks to this in his book, 5 Dysfunctions of a Teen. I learned about this novel through the eyes of a nonprofit director when I was leading a community foundation, but I think it applies even more to congregations. Lencioni identifies 5 issues that get in the way of organizations performing well to meet their missions, arranging these 5 issues into a pyramid shape. You may have encountered some of these dysfunctions in groups that you are involved in. Let's see if you can guess which of the following 5 dysfunctions of a team he put at the base of this pyramid. Could it be lack of commitment or avoidance of accountability? Maybe absence of trust, inattention to results, or fear of conflict? Have your guess? It's lack of trust. Because trust is the foundation of all relationships. If we don't trust each other, we can't open up and share what we really think and want. We can't engage conflict productively. We can't commit to a vision, hold each other accountable, or stay focused on the results we are getting for our mission, rather than our personal needs alone. An organization, a community like Westside, does not get far without a strong foundation of trust. To use the garden metaphor that you've already got going here with the stewardship campaign, trust is the soil in which we plant all of our dreams. And if that soil is not rich with minerals, if it's not well aerated, then it doesn't matter what we plant, or how much sun it gets, or how much water, or how well we weed. If the soil isn't sound, we will not be able to sow and reap the harvest we want. The history of this community suggests to me that you have healthy soil here at Westside. It suggests that you have pulled together and built the sort of trust that allows a congregation to thrive. It was kind of fun. I got a direct peek at this, your founding period, through the archives at the Meadville Lombard Theological School. My alma mater, their archivist, was able to scan and send me the VUA's file on Westside's beginnings. It includes articles of incorporation, bylaws, and the membership roll with all the names of the people who were part of that. It also included letters of support endorsing this new effort, which came from the district executive and president of what was then the Southwest UU Conference, as well as from Reverend Moshaven, minister of neighboring First Jefferson UU Church. All of them affirming the good work that this group of founders was doing and the value of a new UU church in this particular location. And I saw that Myrtle McMahon, who was at this morning's earlier service, was a member of Westside's founding board of directors, and she actually was the one who submitted that application to the UUA. So looking at materials like that, I can't help just feeling what a huge undertaking and accomplishment. The founders clearly worked earnestly together and established a new circle of trust in this place. I've also heard about the way the Westside community pulled together after the fire. You grew more committed and more trusting of one another in that process. And the decision to buy this property and create an enduring home represented another turning point in your history. More recently, I was really excited to learn about your decision to phase out your relationship with the Montessori school that you partnered with in this building so that you have full access to this space for your own programming. So each of those major points in your history represented a leap of faith and a deepening of trust that you placed in one another to be able to move forward together. And now, of course, you are on the threshold of another such moment through the search for a new settled minister. A process powered by the trust that you all placed in the 7 people you appointed to be on your search committee. So Westside is a community that knows something about trust, or you would not have come this far. At the same time, health is not something we can take for granted. Just as we need to take care of our bodies as individuals and teach our children to brush their teeth and get a good night's sleep, eat good food and exercise regularly, all those things we do day after day and night after night and week after week. So a community needs certain disciplines to ensure that it remains vibrant and at its best. And that's why in my very first opportunity to speak to you as a gathered community, I want to zero in on that most vital building block of community, trust. And to express to you my personal commitment, if I am called as minister to Westside, not only to be worthy of your trust myself, but also to tend the congregation as a whole organism, to help maintain a healthy environment so that all who enter here might experience this place as a circle of love and trust. Organizations often adopt codes of conduct and rules of operation that tell people what to expect and what is expected of them. I understand if the rumor is true that there are some other Star Trek fans in the church. So let's use that as an example. Starfleet, of course, has all sorts of regulations about how things are done. Makes for a predictable environment and efficient work. But it is still the one-at-a-time interactions between individual people that make such a community a place where people trust each other and aren't just following the rules. Captain Janeway from the starship Voyager, my personal favorite, she might be able to press her new cadets to follow the rules, but to win the trust of her crew, especially the people from the Maquis Rebellion, who got thrown into Voyager's crew at the time of the pilot, Janeway had to work a little harder. She had to give Chakotay and B'Elanna the same respect as her other officers, and empower them to do their jobs, and even allow herself to be vulnerable by trusting people who until quite recently had seen her as their enemy. Within a season or two, as Voyager fans know, these Maquis rebels had become not only colleagues, but very dear friends of the other officers on Voyager. Later in the series, there's another kind of plot development that turns on trust. When a cyborg drone is rescued from aboard and joins the Voyager community, Captain Janeway becomes a mentor and kind of a mother figure, really, to this character, 7 of 9. And she copes with her loss of the Borg Collective and rediscovers her human heritage. Eventually, 7 of 9 decides that Voyager is her new collective, the community in which she places her trust, a community which paradoxically helps her to embrace her uniqueness as an individual. And it's hundreds of interactions over multiple seasons that build this trust and this sense of fellowship, which is how it is with churches, too. One of the pioneers of UU religious education, Angus MacLean, wrote, "The way we set ourselves in fellowship for the quest of truth is more significant than many of the conclusions we must tentatively hold about life's origins and meanings." I hear a lot of truth in that. The way we set ourselves in fellowship is critical. But for the characters in the Star Trek universe, the mission to seek out new life and new civilization is tempered by the prime directive, the principle that they must respect others' cultures and not interfere with their self-determination. For we UUs, our search for truth unfolds within our commitment to our 7 principles. This is part of how we set ourselves in fellowship. I was pleased to learn that Westside has recently been exploring the development of a congregation-wide covenant, understanding how to workshop just a few weeks ago. So as you may know, if you participated in that, covenants are about the promises we make to one another about how we are going to be together. They're one of our main tools for UU congregations to nurture health, to create and maintain a circle of trust, developing relational covenants and lovingly holding each other to them. This is the prevention and maintenance work that will ensure the soil of this religious community remains healthy. This is tilling the soil of trust and adding soil amendments. So beautiful and useful plants may take root here and grow to their full potential. Now, if you've been part of the UU community for very long, you may have noticed that UUs tend to like good process. The joke goes, what's the UU holy book? Robert's Rules of Order, of course. There's a grain of truth there. Ours is a democratic tradition with a small d. Unlike Starfleet, we are not built on a hierarchical chain of command. Historically, we trace what is called our congregational polity, our way of organizing ourselves and making decisions, to New England and the Cambridge platform of 1648. This is the kind of fact that I assume you're going to be memorizing for the Ministerial Fellowship Committee. When I read this document for myself in seminary, very archaic language, I recognized a type of anchoring in the Bible and in scriptural passages that is no longer really the dominant way that we speak in UU culture, except for this enduring language of covenant. And I'm struck by two things. The first is how the Cambridge platform spells out principles empowering a church to admit its members, elect its own officers, ordain members if it sees fit to do so, and to call its own minister. Still defining features of our congregational polity today, going back to 1648. But what stood out to me most was the spirit of relationship in which all of these tasks of self-governance happen. The platform speaks repeatedly of neighborly love and learning to walk together in the way of love. It directs churches to offer each other mutual aid and counsel. It requires members and sister churches to hold each other accountable for living their faith in an authentic way, even to admonish a member or a sister church if their behavior is not in keeping with their values. If one member does something which injures another, the injured party is to lovingly confront that person. So a congregation is not just a collection of people, but must, the platform says, be orderly knit together. It is to be a circle of love and trust. All of our shared work to make covenants and to live into them expresses a spirit of respect, affection, and commitment to one another. It's about the quality of your connection, one that is grounded in love. Which brings me to our reading, the Discourse on Goodwill. This Buddhist teaching became palpable to me. Really, I feel like it became part of me over a period of years as I used it in meditation. The passage begins, "May all beings be filled with joy and peace." And it goes on to beseech us to offer goodwill to everyone. Strong and the weak, the great and the small, the mean and the powerful, the short and the long, the subtle and the gross, seen or unseen, dwelling far off or nearby, being or waiting to become. I think we're supposed to get the idea what they really mean. Everyone may all be filled with lasting joy. In the community that gathered around a meditation center in California, where I lived and worked for a time, we looked upon such words as an invitation to notice all the people we interacted with from day to day, and regard challenging interactions or patterns we might have with people, to look at them as opportunities for growth, to grow in love. You might think of it as strength training for goodwill. Only the repetitions did not involve the quadriceps or the biceps, but the heart and the mind. Such training might mean bearing with a roommate's mood swings, or going for a brisk walk to get centered before discussing a frustration with a coworker. Or for the truly determined, making a special point to seek out that retreat goer whose voice and know-it-all demeanor grated on your nerves, and practice compassion for their insecurity, and offer them a listening ear without judgment. Encounters like that were a way to practice goodwill. I think the passage is just as relevant in a community like Westside. We could even have a little fun with this and make up our own verses with church members in mind. The young and the old, the wealthy and the working class, the longtime members and the newcomers, the friendly and the gruff, the chatty and the reticent, the punctual and the habitually late, the super volunteers and the commitment wary. And you can add your own things to the list here, maybe reflecting the theological mix. May all be filled with lasting joy. And may I stay in right relationship with all and expect the same from them. Later, the passage grows more exalted, reaching beyond mere goodwill. So within yourself let grow a boundless love for all creatures. It calls to us. The boundless love. We can hear a simpler voice in other traditions as well. This makes me think of the most basic teaching of Jesus, one which continues to speak to many Unitarian Universalists. Love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. This is how children learn to love, how followers of a teacher like Buddha or Jesus learn to love, how anyone first learns to love. By the catching influence, the magnetic example of someone who has loved us. So regardless of what we make of all the theology that people developed around Jesus of Nazareth in the centuries after his death, this lesson of his life echoes through time. As I have loved you, so you love one another. Buddha teaches us to approach this kind of boundless love like a spiritual discipline, saying, then as you stand or walk, sit or lie down, as long as you are awake, strive for this with one point in mind. Your life will bring heaven to earth. To me, this text captures the essence of the spiritual life. We are training ourselves in the way of love, so that whoever comes in the way of our love gets it, which was the impish way my meditation teacher liked to put it. The church is quite purposefully a place where we can practice loving, where we can let whoever comes in the way of our love get it. Starting close right here in this community, living into our covenants with one another, and extending out into our neighborhood, our city, and beyond. Let your love flow outward through the universe, Buddha taught. For its height, its depth, its broad extent, a limitless love without hatred or enmity. The marvel of all this is that our personal spiritual growth and the health of the congregation are so intimately connected. As we stretch in our ability personally to love, as we build our strength and stamina, we make the soil of this place even richer. Trust deepens. The ground is fertile for all sorts of seeds that we might plant to serve more people and to influence the wider culture in ways that align with our liberal religious values. Interestingly, the Buddhist passage uses a parent-child relationship as a model of love. It goes, just as a mother with her own life protects her child, her only child from harm, so within yourself let grow a boundless love for all creatures. Why did Buddha lift up parental love? A mother's or father's love for a child encompasses the whole of who that little person is and their shared history. My love for my daughter is not just a biological phenomenon, not just an instinct that would lead me to dodge in front of a car to protect her from peril. It's also the product of a relationship that developed over time. It's a fondness built on knowing her sweet spirit, her way of snuggling her soft blankie, her determination to learn to roller skate, her bright eyes. It includes all the songs we sing together and how she loves the Wildcat show and making up recipes and producing what sometimes seems like an impossible output of arts and crafts. The intensity of a mother's love for her child, her only child, is grounded in all such particularities. The act of loving is never abstract. Likewise, we can grow in our ability to love through our practice with the very specific people we encounter at church. In my home congregation, there was a woman, I'll call her Isabel, that I will never forget. Isabel wore beautiful hats to church. It was like an Easter hat every Sunday, and she was one of our most gregarious readers. She always had a story to tell. I remember her warmly as one of the people who made me feel welcome in what at the time seemed to me like this strange and surprising place called the UU Church. When we served on the Racial Justice Task Force together, Isabel brought wonderful energy to the group. I confess, though, that I was sometimes a bit annoyed with the way that she liked to insert personal stories into our meeting agendas and continue on with them after we got through our business. At that particular time in my life, this is probably 15 years ago, I felt like I needed to move along promptly to my next commitment. I had little patience for Isabel's fountain of stories. But I did make some effort to listen. As I look back now, I realize that Isabel, who lived alone and had retired from her university position, might have been lonely. The church was the locus of her social life. She served on committees not only to further their work, but also to meet the need for companionship. I could have stretched even further, I'm sure, but the efforts I did make to slow down and to pay attention to the human being before me were growing my ability to love. And quite likely, at the same time, Isabel was working hard to love me, even though I was preoccupied with my to-do list. So we humans come to know each other in all our quirks and endearments, all our gifts and flaws, all the ways in which we are each still a work in progress. Practicing goodwill does require us to stretch ourselves and bear with each other's rough edges to some extent, but fortunately, this does not mean that we must agree with each other's ideas all the time. That would be pretty shocking for a UU congregation, actually. As we often like to say, we don't have to think alike to love alike. We can approach differences in our experiences and ways of making sense of the world with a spirit of curiosity. We can have humans and Vulcans, Klingons, and Betazoids all cooperate for a new federation. As nature shows us through symbiosis, differences can be beneficial. If we keep a spirit of love and respect, our differences can enhance rather than divide the community. I think Jose Ballou, one of the early figures in Universalism, was onto something when he wrote, "If we agree in love, there is no disagreement that can do us any injury. But if we do not, no other agreement can do us any good." Let us endeavor, Ballou said, to keep the unity of the spirit and the bonds of peace. In other words, let us all keep one another within the circle of love and trust. If we do, Westside UU Church will surely live long and prosper in its mission. Amen. Amen.